Hello everyone, this is DJ and welcome to another episode of RC Retirement. Today I'm going to talk about something that seems to be the recurring theme of the show. As always, it seems to be medical retirements. That's a recurring theme and obviously an important topic to those of you out there. In this case, it's not me asking questions or me coming up with the topics. It is an audience member coming up with the topics. I was approached by the spouse of an audience member who started asking me questions, and after a long email exchange, I ultimately said, why don't you just come on the show and let me subject myself basically to your slings and arrows. Let me answer all of your questions at once. I'll even bring my medical records consultant into this Zoom video and let you question both of us, and then you can get all of your questions answered at once. Well, both of them, the husband and the wife, chose to do that. In this case, the person who had the questions was the wife. The military officer, Heather, had lots of great questions, and I have decided to, with her permission, share them with you. This is a segment of that Q&A, and I will be presenting other segments with you in the coming days and weeks. Now let's go to Heather, and at one point her husband Dan. You'll see him on several occasions. He came in after keeping an eye on the kids and had some comments and questions of his own. In fact, at one point, you will see that he got to hear me recant one answer and give a correction to that answer, but that's coming up in a later episode. So for now, let me just go on in and show you the episode. Now, for those of you who are hearing alternate versions of this episode, be it podcast or radio or SoundCloud, I do have to say I recommend that you go to YouTube and watch it, consume it that way, because there are a lot of notes that I have put on the screen that add to the conversation or sometimes clarify what one of us is saying. So I recommend going there and taking a look at those screen notes. Also, each episode on YouTube has, just like my show notes for this episode does for the radio show or for the podcast or whatever, every episode has show notes and links and useful items, so be sure to check that out as well. Alright, so without further ado, let's go see what Heather has for me. And this is also the first appearance of Misty, who has been an incredible help for me, and you'll be seeing more of her in the future, hopefully. You'll certainly see, for those of you who contract my help, you'll be seeing the results of her work and the way it benefits you. Alright, so without further ado, here is Heather and Misty and lots of great information. Here we go. Hello everyone, this is DJ. Today I have an interesting situation. I have a viewer who has some questions about the integrated disability evaluation system, as well as my Michigan medical records consultant, Misty. But Heather is an Army officer who has some questions about what's involved with IDES, since she may be going through that particular evaluation system pretty soon, and she wants to pick our brains about that right now. And since I like to do things with video, I thought this would be a good opportunity to both answer her questions and make a video for everybody. So without further ado, let's fire away with Heather's questions and see what everybody can learn from them. So Heather, it's your floor.
All right. Well, thank you for answering my questions, and hopefully it'll be helpful for other people as well. So like you said, my first question will be is, where does the IDES process start? And for me, the reason I'm wanting to ask that question is I recently submitted a profile packet that puts me in a non-deployable status. So for me, they said that I have to go through a fit for duty exam. And then after that, because of this new policy of deployer to get out, they said that I'd be getting out, I'd have to go through the IDES process. So what does the IDES process look like?
All right. So IDES is just an acronym. We love to speak in acronyms. It's the Integrated Disability Evaluation System. And of course, you're referring to, as far as deploy or get out, you're referring to the former Secretary of Defense, Mattis, referring to his policy of be in a deployable status or get out of the military, which is still the policy as it stands right now. So you currently have medical issues that preclude you from being able to deploy to an austere environment. You've already said that you've got a packet going, and that could lead to a fit for duty board. That is the first step in moving forward to what is called the IDES process. It always starts with a fit for duty board, because if you were found fit for duty, obviously, then there's no need for you to go to IDES. So if you are not found fit for duty, once you are found not deployable, then especially once it crosses the 12-month mark, and I presume you have hit that month.
I'm about 6 months out from that, so I'm trying to prepare ahead of time for what to expect.
Once you hit the 12-month mark, which that's really the throat cutter, that is when things start to get ugly, and medical evaluations of the kind we're discussing really become an issue. So I'm going to refer to my particular IDES experience a lot as we go through this. When I had my fit for duty examination, I had a lot of time for trying to recover from double knee operations. The operations did not cure the problems for which they were intended to solve. And I was sent to Fort Knox for, well, I had a fit for duty evaluation at state level. I was National Guard, so I had an FFD at state level. Was sent to Fort Knox for a follow-on evaluation, and was essentially asked, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue with this additional therapy, or do you want to start the IDES process because you've been on this continuing therapy for so long? So it's kind of like your situation. You're not fit for continued service, so we have to do something with you. What do you want it to be?
This was prior to Secretary Mattis's deploy or get out policy, so it was slightly different for me. So I said, I've tried to recover for a year and a half by this point. Let's do the board. Let's just do this. So after that, so began IDES for me. All right. So I think I babbled enough on that one. What is next for you?
Okay, so for IDES, for AGR soldiers, like you were saying, you had to go to Fort Knox. So for me, they were telling me for that fit for duty exam, I'll have to go down to Fort Leonard Wood. So after that initial appointment for my fit for duty exam, when I'm going through the IDES process, will I be able to go to my local VA office here, or will I always have to go away to an active duty post for any additional appointments?
AGR soldiers are required to go to active duty installations for their exams.
Okay, even the VA type of exams to get that type of evaluation to see what rating you're going to get through them?
Yes. M-Day soldiers, or TPU, as you call them in the Army Reserves, are able to go to local VA clinics or VA hospitals for their exams, but AGR soldiers have to go to active duty installations for their exams. So
since we're considered active duty, we have to go through the active duty process.
That's right.
So we will have to travel to go to those active duty installations every time.
That's right. So I was put on travel orders and had to go 400 miles away for an examination when I could have gone to Ann Arbor to a VA hospital and had the same thing.
Okay.
Or you could probably go down the street and
yes,
have the same sort of exam yourself.
There's several VA places close to me, yes. So at these medical appointments, what types of things should I be expecting to prepare myself ahead of time so I'm not caught off guard?
How modest are you? I asked someone in the Army.
Yes, I mean, I've been in 17 years, so at this point, I'm not that modest anymore.
Okay, so expect a head-to-toe comprehensive examination because that's what's going to happen.
Would you say it's something similar to like when you joined the Army and you went through MEPS, that type of examination?
Not quite that comprehensive, but close.
Okay.
That's, yeah, close to that.
Okay.
I did not expect anywhere near the level of exam that I received when I was at Knox, but it was fairly close to the MEPS exam. I don't know if I mention this or if I need to mention this or not. Make sure the liaisons that are assigned to you have every piece of medical record you have prior to your arrival. That will speed things along.
Arrival as in the appointment after my first fit for duty appointment, that
Right.
first, okay.
Yeah.
And so in my situation, again, going back to being AGR, most of my doctors I've seen have always been civilian doctors in all these different locations. For me, it's been different states. So I have doctors in Texas, I've had doctors in Oklahoma, now I have doctors here in Minnesota. So do I need to reach out to all these different doctors' offices and request my medical records?
Yes, pull all those records together. And in this case, I have to ask you a question. In the National Guard, each battalion has what's called a medical readiness NCO, who's responsible for compiling a medical file on each soldier, and if necessary for IDES purposes, pushing it up to higher headquarters and eventually on to the Physical Evaluation Board liaison officer, for the soldier, what sort of resource is available on the Army Reserve side, if any? Or is it purely on, as I suspect, purely on the back of the individual soldier?
My guess is it's going to be on I'm going to be the one required to do all the work. I doubt that there is anybody that can help me do that. I think it's just set up differently. There is no medical person in my particular unit, and each unit is rolled up under a different type of unit. I can ask that question. That would be a good question to ask. Again, since I'm still so far out that I have the time to be requesting this information and not feel like I'm struggling to get it in a short amount of time. So that is a good thing for me to ask, and I'm going to do that, but I don't think we have something already set up in place for that.
Okay. Like I said, I suspected that would be the answer. That's a shame.
Yes, it is. It took me several weeks to a month to get my medical records from Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, because I had to send a certified letter to them to get a copy of my medical records. It had to be notarized in order for them to release it, because I was no longer in the state anymore. I couldn't just go over and get it in person now. I had, PCS. So that took a little bit of work to get that one. And so I'm slowly working on contacting the other locations I've been to.
Misty, would you please take a stick and convince these other people how wrong they are to give her such hardship?
I mean, because this is a world where if they're on the same electronic health record, so either they're on CareWeb or they're on Epic, because those are pretty much your choices, that as a patient, you click a button and it literally pulls your records from every single place that has an Epic and you can then see them all on your web portal. So it's really ridiculous that it should take that. In fact, they've put in some newer regulations with the Cures Act in 2018 that I suspect are being violated by what they're asking. That said, nobody pays any attention to the Cures Act. It's a big problem in my daily life with working with drug companies.
Do you think it could be a difference between the different branches, it being Air Force compared to Army?
It's probably actually a difference in civilian versus military, in that the Department of Defense likes to not pay attention to civilian medical regulation. They're persistently in a battle with HHS over something or other.
I also suspect that the military health record system, or at least the Army version and the National Guard version, are radically different, because on the National Guard side, if the records were in one state and you went to another state, there was a seamless transition of records from one state to the next. I suspect there's no such animal going from one region to the next on the reserve side.
Yes, and definitely there is a difference.
Army.
And there's a difference between Army and Air Force. I know that, like, when I was there, they couldn't see any of my previous records from any of the active duty posts I had been to before. So like when I had been at Fort Lee, they couldn't see anything from there. So our systems don't talk to each other between the different branches. So
beautiful.
But the good news is, when I did get the CD with my records, it was very detailed. It was about 300 pages worth of records. So that was good. So.
Well, good start. Okay, well, let's continue.
All right, so my next question, going along with what's going on right now, do you think that the COVID-19 could create any issues with people going into the IDES process? Do you think it might slow things down? Do you think it could possibly speed things up? What type of effect do you think that the COVID-19 might have on it?
All right, I'm going to give you my conjecture, and then I'm going to see what Misty has to say. And this is pure conjecture. From what I've seen, everything, both military and civilian, has been slowed down as a result of this virus, and I'd expect nothing less on the part of IDES processing. I could be completely wrong, but I would expect things to take longer as a result. And Misty, what would be your opinion? Of course,
working in medical systems, I can say, at least on the civilian side, and I believe on the VA side, anything non-essential has completely stopped. And I'm guessing that this would be considered non-essential because, after all, if they can just keep you for an extra couple months and not deploy you, that is their prerogative. But yeah, we've come to a point where they literally are not having any visits that are not for urgent conditions. So until that starts to be lifted, and at this point in Michigan at least, and I know we're one of the harder hit states, but at this point we don't know when that will be. We're hoping, I think everything is canceled in clinics through June 1st, and they're expecting it to continue probably till July 1st. But it is putting on a significant strain. And then you're going to have the additional delay when all the people who were scheduled for the time everything was canceled now have to be rescheduled. And as much as doctors like working 80-hour weeks, there's only so many patients you can pack into a day and make any sense of what's going on.
So it looks like there's probably going to be a big backlog leading up to when I would be going through the process.
well, you were hoping to hit 20 years at some point, right?
Yes, that might happen at this rate.
You're about to cross the 15-year mark. Who knows?
That's true.
I like to point out to everybody that the Black Death burned itself out in about 3 years. So that's our worst case scenario.
This is nothing close to that. So.
No, the 1918 flu actually only lasted 3 flu seasons, a little bit in 17, a whole lot in 18, and taking up the ashes on 19. So,
anything is possible now. I mean, you're right.
Have time, potentially. And certainly, if your condition becomes manageable with medication, you'll have time to find out that effect.
Yeah, that is very possible, yes.
Okay. So as you saw or heard, there was some wonderful info there. And I hope that it was beneficial for all of you who took part in consuming it. And I recommend that you come back for episode 102 if you are listening to the radio show, or if you're on YouTube. Actually, I don't know what episode this is. I didn't look that up before I started recording. So come back next week on YouTube and you'll see part 2 of this Q&A and get to see more of this wonderful Q&A, because Heather and Dan really start laying into us in part 2. And like I said, it just gets better and better. This is good stuff, and I believe it's beneficial for all service members out there, not just if you're AGR, but everyone who might be going through a medical board. Sure, she's looking at it from an AGR perspective, but you'll notice that I'm always giving it that extra little slant of part-time soldiers do it this way, in your case it's this way. So be sure to always listen for those little provisos. If you are a reservist who is part-time, I'm still thinking of you when giving the answers to her. Now, one clarification, I did ask Heather about medical readiness NCOs, which is a great asset that National Guard units have. I followed up with her a couple of weeks later, well, not weeks, but several days later, and it turns out that Army Reserve units are not graced with such assets, and that individual soldiers have to bear the brunt of putting together all of these medical packets and whatnot on their own. So that is a real shame. And so they are left out to look for resources like mine and to do all the work themselves. So I guess that's great for me, but it's a lot of extra work for the individual. So that's a bit of a shame for the individual, and we can only hope that things improve over time. Alright, so until next time, thank you for being a part of this audience. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and ask that you, of course, return again for the next episode. If you would like to support my efforts, I ask that you go to patreon.com/rcretirement and join at whatever monthly rate is best suited for you. Also remember that you can go to rcretirement.com, take a look at my fees for services page. I offer a variety of personnel services that can improve your lot in life. Take a look at that and see how I can help you. Alright, so once again, thanks for being here, and I will see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
If you liked what you heard on today's episode, then please go below and give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, please let other people know about this channel and the information it can provide for them. If you have questions or comments, then please have no qualms about posting them in the comments section below. Please remember the RC Retirement YouTube channel and the RC Retirement website are not recognized or endorsed by the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or any other government agency. The information presented in these resources are for entertainment and informational purposes only. Also, the content of either of these resources should not be considered financial or legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel, accountant, or financial planner before making any decisions based on what you have learned here. As always, thank you for watching the RC Retirement YouTube channel.